Hi, everybody. I'm Monique, and I'm here with Sheila Mahoney. We are talking about the gig economy today. Sheila's going to educate us on some of the concepts of the gig economy, so we'll get started right now. So, Sheila, can you explain the gig economy theory to us?
Sure. Thanks, Monique, and thank you for having me. The gig economy is a subset of what's known as the sharing economy, and probably the most familiar reference point is something like Uber or Lyft, and also Airbnb. Those are all ways in which technology has pretty much created marketplaces. So on the surface, Airbnb, it could almost be related to the hotel industry because it's addressing the demand that hotels normally demand. But the truth is, it's not. It's a technology. It's a marketplace. And in that sense, when that theory or that idea is applied to human resources, especially temporary jobs or projects of any kind, the vernacular used is the gig economy.
Okay, so you mentioned Airbnb. Are there other industries that are taking advantage of the gig economy?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the biggest one, that probably the most mature, is a marketplace called Upwork, and it has a very robust feature set, and it's LifeSciHub actually studies it very often for our user requirements. And most of these actually started in technology of some kind because they were made by technologists. Upwork specializes in things like web development, graphic arts, things that are technical in nature. There's another one called TaskRabbit that, as it turns out, I believe the original intention was for people to hire specialists for home type projects, not quite handyman, but things like needing to deliver something, needing to, whatever anybody would need in their house. It did include fixing things, and the majority of their work, the projects that got funneled through TaskRabbit and continue to be funneled, it turns out it was people who wanted other people to assemble their IKEA furniture for them. And TaskRabbit ended up getting bought by IKEA, I think in 2017.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I could totally use that. So how do you envision the gig economy applying to the life sciences industry?
That's a great question. We already have a gig economy. It just hasn't been technology enabled yet. So there is a tremendous amount of independent contractor work that takes place, that always has. There are some job roles or job titles that are almost entirely contractors in nature compared to other industries. So things like medical writers, clinical research associates. It's extremely common to have temporary, highly skilled temporary workers in this space. LifeSciHub is the first online marketplace that is dedicated to the independent workforce, and the same way as Airbnb is to hotels, that is the difference between LifeSciHub and a typical staffing firm or something along those lines. We're not a staffing firm, we're not an employer, we are a technology platform, and we're an actual online marketplace.
Speaking to you in the past, you've talked about how the life sciences industry is so sort of perfect fit for the gig economy and the rise and fall of clinical trial resources that are needed throughout the life cycle. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so there is a permanent uncertainty with the drug development process, meaning that it is absolutely impossible for any drug sponsor anywhere to accurately predict what is truly going to be necessary from a peak overflow standpoint during clinical trials. There are things that happen, patient enrollment. You can plan for the best, and it could all be, 3 to 6 months to a year delayed because you can't find the specific patients you need, or the patient population, they're just there's too many exclusion criteria to fit the patient population you're trying to study. There are 1,000 reasons, and that's just one dynamic of clinical development that is incredibly unpredictable. So across the board, there's no way to predict certainty, so you can't wrap around full-time equivalents in that way. You can outsource to other organizations, and essentially what happens there is a large portion of what the drug sponsor is outsourcing is having to deal with that unpredictability. So the demand for temporary workers then shifts to organizations such as contract research organizations. So it's not that the unpredictability truly gets fixed or goes away. It can be shifted from one organization to another. What LifeSciHub is a platform dedicated to providing access to that workforce in a way that has never existed before. In order to use this talent pool, usually drug sponsors would have to have one contract per resource. And so these are excellent resources. They're incredible talent, but it's extremely difficult from a business administration standpoint. Another problem is that from a liability standpoint, there's a difficulty, there's an increased risk, because if there is a problem, what is the remedy? Is a drug sponsor going to sue an individual person, a single sole proprietor, for a problem that happens? No, the drug sponsor wants to sue as large of an organization as possible. Now, hopefully that never happens, but when it comes to contracting and acquiring resources, that is a huge priority for drug sponsors. Subsequently, what ends up happening is that drug sponsors funnel as much work as possible through these very large organizations, staffing firms that provide staff augmentation, and the type of resource that usually it becomes interested in staff augmentation are the type of resource that are looking for full-time jobs. They're not dedicated independents. They're not people who are independent by choice, who want to be independent, usually. And when somebody who is in staff augmentation finds a full-time job, what ends up happening? They drop whatever temporary project they're on.
So how do you think R&D teams can prepare to take advantage of this right now?
Well, that's a good question. I think that the industry needs to, first of all, become aware of this as an option, and also understand that this is something that is actually transforming other verticals. In fact, the U.S. Department of Labor is changing the way they gather metrics now because of the rise of the independent workforce. So this is something that's happening to the entire U.S. labor market. It's happening a little bit differently in every single niche, every single vertical. It looks different. That's why Upwork would not be we feel that Upwork would not be a very good fit. Even though it's got great features and functionalities, it's not contextualized for life sciences R&D. That's what we're doing. We speak the language, we know what the workflow is, and we're designing our platform accordingly. So I think becoming aware of it, starting to interface with HR, meaning to help, it's not something that a single person in an organization will be able to manifest. It has at least 3 stakeholders involved. One is the line function hiring manager, who is responsible for getting clinical trials done as soon as possible with the highest degree of quality. So they're the ones on the front lines of actually getting the work done. But they really need to engage with HR, who is on the front lines of ensuring the risk mitigation associated with human resources. So they are not diametrically opposed, but they are 2 completely separate goals. And each of these silos is minding those goals as best as they can right now. But we see an opportunity to bring those silos together and achieve both of those goals in a more efficient way. The third stakeholder is procurement, who is in charge of spending the money or managing the money that's associated with all workers. And the amount of money a drug sponsor spends is by and large, I think the highest amount is on human resources. So that's of huge concern, is cost containment.